I can confirm now, it's an extradition request for an individual.
First off, the allegation on the drug, the cocaine, 7 suitcases, the ambassador, the Sierra Leonean ambassador to Guinea. What's the update on that?
I think we mentioned at the press conference last week, the ambassador in Guinea has been recalled and is now, I can confirm, Ambassador Alban Bangura is back in Sierra Leone. And the reason for its recall was so that he can answer questions as to what happened, how it happened. And now an executive review is happening as part of the investigations. We also signed an MOU with Guinea that will continue to work closely on the investigation so that we can address cross-border crime, transnational crimes. That's something that we're committed to. We sent no less a person than our Foreign Minister, the Honorable Timothy Musakaba, to Guinea. We met with his counterparts and we've resolved a big part of that issue, and we've set in place what is going to happen. I think you should wait to see the outcome of the investigations with the ambassador. But as I said the last time, bad things will happen. People will seek to do bad things. The question is what you do, how you respond. On the question of the other issue dealing with the Dutch government, I think we've been clear. They have sent what amounts to, I can confirm now, it's an extradition request for an individual that they refer to as Just Leidekas, who they believe is in Sierra Leone. We have been very consistent as a government that we will A, follow the law, B, we set up an investigation. It was an open source investigation. We've come back to the public and said in our investigation the identity of the individual that was in that picture, what we have on our records is a guy named Omar Sharif. And so one big part of the conversation was to identify, to make sure that indeed this is the same person that we're talking about. That's one. And two,
is it the same person?
This is now part of the investigation. I don't have an update on that particular fact. What the IG mentioned was that they have not yet been able to interrogate this individual, and that as known addresses for this individual that they went to, they were not able to locate the person. But they've also called on the public. If you have information, this is a small country. If you have information,
mean he's nowhere to be found.
So if people have information, they can bring that to the police, and the police will act on that. But as to the fact of the extradition request from the government of Sierra Leone to the government of Sierra Leone from the Dutch government of the Netherlands, the government will follow the law. You're a lawyer yourself. We have laws here on extradition. They dates back, I think it's the 1974 Act, I think. Has very specific provisions on what needs to happen. The AG is reviewing that. As I've said, the AG is a man of integrity. He's a man of international repute. He's going to follow the law. He's going to review that. He's going to act in accordance with what is in the best interest of our country and what is consistent with the laws of our country. What seemed to have happened in this case with the Netherlands government, and we've been very vocal about that, is they chose to do all this first on social media and on the media before engaging with us, because they know that just like, we will be, even if the allegations are so huge, you cannot just write to another government or go to the media and say somebody's in another country and then we wake up one morning and arrest everybody that looks like that person. We will follow the steps and the law. And what we invited them to do from day one was, in our first press release, we invited them to come to us. It took them over 2 weeks before they even contacted us officially. And even when they did, they told us they're coming for one meeting. They did not, and then they called the ambassadors in 2 capitals and said, "Oh, can we come see you?" And they rushed there. They did it without informing our AG, who was sitting there waiting for them. Their conduct here has not been consistent with what we expect of.
Are you aggrieved with regards to that?
We're not aggrieved. We're just disappointed in their in the antics. It seems like they were playing mostly to try to, play to the media. It feels like they're feeding a certain audience. We want to continue to treat them with respect, as we've done with them in the past, and we want to continue to follow the law and follow diplomatic protocol.
Let's say yours happens to be Omar Sharif, and it happens that he's in Sierra Leone. What will be the next line of action of the Sierra Leone government?
We follow the law. The extradition law is clear. If indeed there's been an extradition request, first it has to meet a threshold. The threshold is simple. There should be criminality that's established both in the country that is requesting, and what they are alleging has to also constitute crime in Sierra Leone. That's the first step. But that's a determination that the AG will make. he will review. So first they have a duty to submit the totality of the evidence that they used to convict this man to us. We will examine that evidence. And if the AG determines that this meets a threshold and that he says, okay, indeed there is reasonable grounds here, we've seen by our own analysis of the evidence, so they have to be willing to submit that evidence. That's the law. We didn't make the law. We have to implement the law. Then the AG will make an application to the courts for this extradition. The courts will now, the IG will now be tasked to produce this person, or apparently I've also heard that the courts can actually hold that hearing. Now this individual also has a right, that's why you go to court. They can contest the extradition, they will have a right to cancel. You know, the lawyers here will have a job to do. The courts will now examine both the position of the governments, and that position is going to be informed by what the Dutch government has provided us, and we say, look, we've come to the conclusion that there's reasonable grounds here. The person's lawyer will have a determination. The same reason they'll have a determination based on certain principles. Say, look, they'll argue, I will not be given a fair trial, blah, 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 blah. I have ties here, I should not be moved. Because in this case, we don't have an extradition agreement with the country in question. But it doesn't stop us from exploring that based on mutual aid agreements, principles and international law, which is what we will follow. So there's no obligation here. Let me finish. Following that, if the court now concludes that indeed the grounds have been met, the court will issue a ruling. The ruling will be that this person should indeed be extradited. Now, even after that, then the states will have a duty now to examine the circumstances. The AG reserves the right on the principles of, again, I'm not telling you what we will do or not do, I'm just breaking down what the law is. Based on public safety, national interest, the AG can say, okay, the court has said this, but in the interest of Sierra Leone, we are going to do X, Y, and Z, or we are going to now engage this country. But first, the AG has to meet that threshold. The AG has to go to courts. The person will have a right to defense. The courts will make a ruling. After the ruling, the states will now look at the circumstances and now start the process of making this move. So it's important that the public knows, so they don't fall for the sensational things that are being reported in the media.
Say his name is Omar Sharif, has already informed the public by even the ministry during the last press conference. Does that presuppose that the Omar Sharif in question is a Sierra Leone national?
I cannot speak to what their nationality is. The police has not mentioned this position yet. As I like to do my job, I like to stick to the facts. I like to report what I know authoritatively. And what I know on this issue is what the police tells me. The police started an investigation. They have come forward. Okay, we'll have another press conference next week. Before that press conference, I will have an opportunity to be thoroughly briefed by the Inspector General of Police, by the AG, and then I'll come back and say, based on their investigation, what they said at the time is that the identity that this person seems to be carrying, based on all the image and all the details that they have collected, that the person was carrying the name Omar Sharif. That's their conclusion. That it might be an alias, but that's the name. Okay? Now, that name is what the police has put forward, and that's what I know. They didn't come to say what their nationality is. In fact, they went further. They said they looked from, because the report at the time was that 6 months was the suspicion was that the individual had been in Sierra Leone for 6 months. So the police started looking all the records going back to 6 months.
There are even other allegations that says he has been in Sierra Leone for the past 2 years.
And that's a new one now. That's a new allegation. But I'm saying at the time of the press conference last week, it was the 6 month that was being reported. So the police looked back all the way 6 months in all our official, formal crossing points into the country, and they said they did not have any evidence of the person coming through any of those.
Now, let's say the image of Sierra Leone has been dented in all of this as we speak. Let's say it turns out to be false. Will Sierra Leone take of a legal action against the Netherlands for having blackmailed the country to that extent?
I will say that there's probably been some attempts to undermine our public image in the way that it's been sensationally reported. But I don't think I'll go as far as agree that our image has been dented. I think image is not based on one or singular news. I think it's based on a set of different things that you have done.
But then it
in
takes
the
just
product.
one bad news to actually dent someone's
Well, I
image.
think it takes one bad news to, create a bad impression of our country. But I don't think our image is dented. I think, yes, we're going through a period of bad news on this particular issue. And every time your name is mentioned alongside kind of illicit transnational trade is not exactly a good thing. But as I've said, I've been in this business of public relations and comms for long enough to understand that what will outlast the sensational news are the facts. And in this case, we will follow the facts.
The reason for
And the actions that we take as a government. You saw with the Guinea situation, when we took those actions, they were fully reported. And the world will see that, this is a responsible country. This is a country that they have their acts together, they have laws in place, and they're following those laws. Same thing. There's no, we're just sticking to what we can, making sure that we're transparent, we're explaining to our public primarily, first of all, but also to international media. I've done multiple media interviews, and what I keep doing and saying to them is we're sticking to the facts, and that's what we're
the reason for that question is just drawing a cue from what my co-host just mentioned, that it takes just one case. So of course, generalize